Okay, good morning, everyone. Like a dummy, I forgot to record the audio for this video where it took me so long to make. So I'm just going to do a voiceover, and I'm basically right here. I'm going to explain the DBQ rubric. Okay, so the rubric for 2020 is going to be a DBQ. It's going to be a shortened DBQ. And it's only going to have 5 documents, and you will have 45 minutes to write it. So the first part that we need to go over is contextualization. So this just means what happened during or before the time period that you're writing about that is going to influence what you are going to write about. So that's contextualization. It should be about maybe like 1 to 2 sentences, 3 at the most. Usually you would pick like 2 to 3 vocab terms and then define those terms and explain, like just kind of set the stage for your essay. Your next point is your thesis, and your thesis is just going to be the claim. So what are you arguing? The How I like to write my theses is doing the although and then the counter argument, and then because, evidence, and then therefore your argument. Next is the evidence. The evidence is going to be, you have to use, if you describe at least 2 documents to address the prompt, you will get 1 point for that. If you use 2 documents to support the argument that you're trying to make, you will get a point. If you use 4 documents to support your argument, you are going to get another point for that. Then we go to evidence beyond the documents. So you have to use at least 1 piece of specific evidence that is relevant to your argument that is not mentioned in any of the documents. So if you do that twice, you can get up to 2 points in that. So that'll be something to do. Make sure it's a specific piece of evidence. Then we're going to go to the analysis and reasoning. For one document, explain how or why the document's point of view, purpose, historical. Oh, okay. I'm just going to wait for me to finish. So far, if we hit everything, we have 7 points that we've earned. So now for the analysis and reasoning, and this is going to be the hardest part to get. For one document, explain how or why the document's point of view, purpose, historical situation, and or audience is relevant to an argument. So you don't have to explain all of those. It says or. So you can just choose one. For one document, do that. Explain how the intended audience is influencing how that speaker is speaking, and how is that relevant to your argument. Do that for 2 documents, and you can get up to 2 points in that. Now for the complexity point, that is the hardest part to get because it's like no one really knows how to teach it. When they tell the graders to grade the essays, they always just say like, you'll know it when you see it to get the complexity points. So it's really got to be a standout essay for you to get that complexity point. So ignore that whole highlighted thing of how you're going to be graded. They didn't edit that for the updated 10-point DBQ, so don't look at that. No. Okay, so now I will attempt to write a DBQ in the 45 minutes that College Board is going to give you. So the DBQ that I'm going to write is going to be the World War I memory in the interwar DBQ, and that is what we're going to write. So for this one, I did give you this DBQ, but you only had to do an outline. You didn't even have to write the DBQ, so don't worry about it. Also, if you happen to see this video before you turn in your assignment for the outline, and your thesis happens to be the same as my thesis, that's obviously a 0 because that is plagiarism. Okay, so the essay that I need to write, the prompt is evaluate the extent to which nations or groups use the memory of the First World War to advance their political objectives in the period 1918 to 1939. So first, we're going to go ahead and analyze some documents. And this DBQ has 7 documents. The DBQ that you're going to get is going to have 5. Okay, so we're starting. Exciting. So the DBQ that you're going to get is usually going to have 5 documents. But I'm going to go ahead and analyze only like 5 documents. So I'm really just using 5. All right, so as I'm analyzing my documents, I'm going to write document 1, and then I'm going to write who is this document from, who's the source, what's the time period, and who is it for, and what does the document say. So in this document, Gandhi's really just talking about how the Indians have volunteered to fight in many British wars, and in exchange for that, they expected to be granted self-rule, basically independence. And after World War I, that was a devastating loss to India. They were like, come on, I want my independence. And British was like, no, because you have monies and resources and we want that. So Gandhi is one of the leaders of the independence movement, and he does not think that is fair. So he basically got mad. And he uses this to kind of advance his what does he call it? His like case for Indians to gain independence from Great Britain. Okay, now we're moving on to document 4, which is the political platform of the Communist International, a Soviet-sponsored organization of communist parties and movements from around the world, and it was written in 1929. This source basically talks about how the socialist parties of Western European countries, in supporting World War I, they betrayed the communist ideology. And it is worth noting that the source comes from Moscow in Russia, or the Soviet Union, which is the only communist country in the world at the time. So they are basically calling the Western European communist parties that are not tied to the Soviet Union like disgraceful and disloyal to communism, because they supported the World War I, which was an imperialist war. Remember, that was one of the causes of World War I. If we remember World War I, most of the people that were fighting were not rich, like fat cat capitalists. They were regular working class folks that would most likely benefit under communism. You notice I'm keeping track of my time. Still have 38 minutes, about 38 minutes left. You don't want to spend more than 10 minutes analyzing your documents. So once you see that 35-minute mark, you gotta start writing. Okay, so now I'm going to group my documents. And you want to group your documents into what do these documents have in common. So I'm only going to choose documents 2, 3, 4, and 7. So my first group of documents It's going to be documents 2 and 3. It's the Gandhi and the Hitler documents, and the topic for that group, I'm gonna say that it is like nationalist leaders uniting their country against a common enemy. And they're also demanding the expulsion of certain people from their countries. Gandhi wants the British out, and Hitler wants the Jews out. My second group that I'm going to do is documents 4 and document 7. And document 4 is the communist one, and document 7 is the women one. So I'm going to say these are minority groups, like women and communists, and they are trying to expand their movement. So that's how they're advancing their political agendas. My thesis ended up being, although World War I left a devastating scar on the world between 1918 and 1939, whenever you write, you want to make sure that you mention the time period that they want you to focus on. Make sure you mention that. So that's my although, and then my counter argument, and then because, and then that's going to be your evidence. Because minorities try to advance um, their their movements, and so that's one piece of evidence. And nationalist leaders advocated, well, actually, united their countries against a common enemy, the memory of World War I, set the stage for many groups to further their political agendas. So that's the thesis that I came up with. So you can see it's following that, although counter-argument, because evidence, um, and then therefore your argument. Okay, so when we start writing our body paragraphs, my first body paragraph is going to be about the nationalists demanding the expulsion of people from their country, using documents 2 and 3. And I want to do a topic sentence first in that paragraph to kind of sum up what the paragraph is going to be about. And then I want to start going on to what my documents say. If you're doing this, make sure you just summarize and paraphrase. Do not quote, because quoting wastes time, and it just gives you a clearer understanding. It makes the grader think that you can understand the document better when you can summarize it in your own words. If you notice, in each document, when I describe it, I say who it is from and what that person is. Because if I just say, like, it's from Gandhi, you got to describe who Gandhi is, an Indian independence leader. Write as if the graders are your little sibling. Like, if they don't know anything about what you're going to talk about, you got to describe everything. Make sure that you connect the document to the to your argument. If you just describe your argument, that just gets you 1 point. I mean, if you just describe the document, that just gets you 1 point. You need to also explain how that document is evidence for your argument. And when I described my document here, I also inserted that outside evidence. In the document, it never mentioned that women were working during the war. It just said that they achieved a level of independence. But I specifically put that women were working in factories during the war. Now I'm going to write a conclusion, and that conclusion is just rephrasing your thesis, but kind of in a different way. I don't like to repeat myself, so I do it in a different way. Okay, so now that I've written the bulk of my DBQ, I'm just editing it here, like adding some outside evidence to some parts. I'm also like kind of erasing some parts. I would recommend underlining your thesis statement so that the grader knows that this is your thesis statement. This is what you're arguing. Okay, so when you finish, and I have like more than 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna go into my body paragraphs. I'm gonna check if everything is well written, and then I'm gonna see if I can add any sourcing um, to the documents. So I'm going to see if for two documents I can say I can show how the point of view, the historical situation, the purpose, or the audience relates to what I'm arguing, connects to my argument. So I've got about 3 minutes left, and I'm just polishing my essay. I like indenting because it makes it easier to read. Um, I mean, 3 minutes spare, that's pretty good time. During the test, you're going to get 45 minutes to write and then 5 minutes to upload your writing. So we see it. I think it looks good. If you want to give it one more looky-loo, one more read over before you submit it, totally fine if you have time. If you end up not having enough time to write a conclusion, just don't worry about it. You don't get points based on the conclusion. I just write it because I want to restate my thesis just in case the graders do not get what my thesis is at the beginning. If they see it at the end, they might give me that thesis point. Okay, so that's it. Sorry about the sloppy editing in this video. I'm not a YouTuber, so I don't really care. And I have about 2 minutes left, so this is definitely doable. You guys can do it because I believe in you, and if I can do it, you can do it. Okay,